Hello, my name is Rose and welcome back to my corner of the universe. So I am just creating a quick video today elaborating a little bit more on what I meant in my previous video about listening to your body. And there's a lot of different people who are talking about that concept on social media nowadays. And it can mean a few different things. But I quickly wanted to just give some food for thought and what I have experienced with attempting to learn about what that means of listening to your body. And truly, I guess it's just when I really first began to pay attention to my body and to my health issues and wanting to actually commit to it. It was such a bizarre experience because it was, like around 6-7 years ago when I really began that journey. And at that time, not a lot of people were talking about self-care things, so there wasn't all this abundance of information and ideas and, doctors and psychologists and counselors and nutritionists and food coaches and stuff all over social media at that time. So it was truly just kind of a very classic tale as old as time that I don't feel like is really unique of me just burning myself out, burning the candle at both ends, and my life coming to a screeching halt because I kept needing to go to the doctors and my body was just screaming at me, pay attention. But I, just like most people growing up here in the United States, there's this culture of you just push, work, hustle, try to make ends meet. And, there's really no thought into really taking care of myself, like my understanding and, what I witnessed with friends and other people and just like lifestyles were not centered around being aware of taking care of yourself in meaningful, intentional ways. Of course I would like get myself food, do like the basics, the bare minimum of taking care of myself to just get by. But eating was either just for entertainment or because it tastes good. And there wasn't any thought about, is this highly nutritious? I kind of understood, some basic things, right? Like you should eat your vegetables, you should have fruit and things like that. But I didn't take it too seriously. And like I mentioned in my previous video, I have been researching holistic methods of taking care of yourself for over 10 years. But it took me a long time to actually put into place a lifestyle that would sustain the things that I learned about, especially because when you're living life around other people, most people are exactly what I just described. They're just pushing themselves to the brink. And if they have a health issue, they're like, oh yeah, just however I can quickly take care of it. And that's it. They just, or ignore it. I know so many people who, much like me, so this is no judgment, so many people that, hadn't gone to the dentist in like years and were dealing with certain like mouth issues and just sucking it up and not going. And of course, there's the financial implications of what it means when you actually do attend to your health. And that can also make people not want to do it even more. And they keep thinking, well, I'm able to put up with it. And as long as I'm just, careful enough, then I can kind of like skim the surface of not really needing to pay attention to it. And so I was very much so on the same boat with everybody else and everyone else around me, just treating food the same way, taking care of themselves in the same way, which was to not really pay attention to yourself that much. It's like, you just try to be a good person, but you just kind of get on with life and you eat what you can. You get takeout all the time and, you snack on like whatever Doritos and candies, whatever your heart desires. And then these like mysterious little health things kind of pop up. And, you know, it's just, there's no connections being made of like, what am I doing in my life that is making my body act like this? And so there was definitely certain things that I was experiencing that were making me, you know, do the research, like I said, over 10 years ago to find ways to cope. But like I just said, it was just to find ways to cope. And it was harder for me to think that I could actually build a life around and create a structure of how to live better without needing to just cope and needing to just kind of like struggle bus it all the time. And again, you know, it's so much harder when society and most people around you, even still in this time when there's so much information out there, there's still a lot of people who are just kind of like, like, I don't really care about my health. Like, yeah, I get hives every time I eat certain things, but I don't care. Like, you only live once, so who gives a shit? But it's this idea that you can actually step away from just neglecting yourself and actually paying attention to yourself. That is essentially the essence of what it means to listen to your body, is to step away from this lifestyle, this mentality of just, well, no one else does it. And it takes too much energy, too much effort. Sometimes it takes money, and then it takes the strength, the willpower to not do certain things that you want to do, especially if your friends are doing them too. So there's not a lot of cultural incentives at this point still for people to want to live healthier lifestyles in really intentional, whole ways. But once I recognized that my body was just yelling at me to pay attention, I had to really sit with myself and think to myself, you know, I have been having a lot of health issues for as long as I can remember. And the moment that really set this off, I should say, let me kind of step back and kind of get into my story here, was like 6 years ago. And I had like just this weird stomach issue, like just intense, insane, painful as can be cramps in my stomach bloated. It looked like I was pregnant. It was crazy. I'd never experienced anything like that I could remember. And that's an important part. But it was really painful and it freaked me out, obviously, like it would for anybody, because you're just going from like 0 to 100 all of a sudden. Your stomach's cramping. There's nothing that's helping. And so I went to the ER, and I can kind of get into what I found out about that component, but that was like the straw to break the camel's back. And that is usually what people in America do. They wait until their health is just insanely terrible to finally take it seriously. And my point of wanting to create videos like the one I'm making right now is to help people change that, to stop neglecting yourself, and to teach people through just my own experiences of what I've gone through personally, that when you don't pay attention, these things will catch up to you. Like, it seems like, oh, like I'm young and I just want to, like, you know, you only live life once and things are crazy in the world. Who gives a fuck anyway? And relatable, but it seems so easy to just toss it aside when the symptoms and the health issues aren't so in your face all the time. And even with certain chronic health issues that I've had throughout my life, you know, I'd go through periods where it wasn't as intense and things would flare up and be super in my face. But you just learn to kind of cope. And if you're so used to living life where things are just kind of always low-key shitty, then it's comfortable. essentially. It's comfortable and it's easy, and doing anything else is intimidating and also uncomfortable because it's different and there's a lot of unknowns. Again, this is why I feel compelled to share my story, because it is possible to get comfortable with change and becoming aware of yourself and taking care of yourself enough. But I think it's really sad that our healthcare system in America and, you know, likely other areas throughout the world are centralized around just allowing people to do that. People are blind to how their bodies work. There's no incentive to care. And you see things like vending machines at hospitals with like Coca-Cola and like shitty candy and shitty food in the vending machines for people, when you're at a place that is supposed to represent health and a place where doctors are taking care of people. But instead, it's like just a place where people put band-aids on bigger issues, and they just kind of put a band-aid on the symptom, you know, but they don't actually take care of the root problem. It's almost like, you know, someone sees smoke, and so instead of thinking to themselves, oh my God, is there a fire somewhere? People are just like, oh, I'm gonna like just put up like a little like filter to suck out the smoke and everything will be fine. And that's just ridiculous, because then you don't know where the fire is, right? You don't know where the core real issue is that actually needs your attention. And then you get situations where perfectly healthy people who are like runners, even, who seem like they're perfectly healthy, right? They run, they're active, they eat, you know, their veggies, and you know, they drink plenty of water or whatever, and yet they get cancer. That's not random. Cancer isn't, and that's like a whole nother enchilada, but I'm just going to say cancer and or other health issues aren't just random genetic abnormalities that just pop out of the blue. Sometimes they are, because like I'm going to say in all of my videos, I think, there's always an exception. However, there's a lot of evidence and proof that goes to show that there's actually a lot of other precursors, other clues, other things that can tell us that if we had just gotten ahead and taken care of ourselves in different ways, we could have helped ourselves before we get to these extreme points of having these incredibly big health issues and health scares and whatever else. And that's a very big general statement. And I know that there's a ton of people who can, you know, pop in to say that that's, you know, wrong and that this was a fluke thing. I'm not saying that anything is anyone's fault, because you can't blame a society for not knowing better when the structure for health is working against you. So it's not about even blaming the healthcare system necessarily. I'm not trying to place blame anywhere. It's just a matter of awareness that there needs to be a shift. We need to be able to learn and see that there are better ways to be with ourselves. And the way that I really changed my life and started to really take care of myself in my health journey was, again, like other stories. It was just, my health got to a place where it was just one thing after another of things just getting so intense where it was affecting work. It was affecting my social life. I was feeling so run down, and I just had to finally sit with myself and say, okay, I need to actually listen to all of these issues and stop pretending like it's just something I can keep ignoring and keep justifying that I don't have the money or the means, because that was another big thing too, is financially, I didn't feel like I could put the effort towards shifting my life. And that's another thing I want to focus on in this channel too, is how to change your life, change your lifestyle to be more healthy without it costing a boatload to accomplish that. But going back into listening to your body, and I had that stomach flare up situation happen. That's when I finally had this really deep heart to heart with myself, where I really sat there and thought back to my life and thought to myself how many times I've been sick, how many times I've been to the ER, how many times I've had to see a doctor. And it is constant. And it was constant, I should say. And so all I knew is that I wanted to finally pay attention and finally listen to all of these little parts of my life story that I had been ignoring and neglecting. And so I think when it comes to hearing that phrase of listening to your body, it's just a matter of shifting your perspective to know that there are a lot of things, a lot of different ways that your body shows you cues, little hints and little clues that it shows you that something is not working or functioning properly. You know, if you can't get enough sleep, I mean, there's so many different things. It's telling you that something that you're doing in your lifestyle is not sustainable. And it's just a matter of having enough awareness and caring about yourself enough to actually do something about it, and to actually feel like there's people out there who can represent that idea as well, because it is fucking hard when there's not people around you who are, you know, showing that that's even a possibility. So when I really halted myself to look at this was again like 6 years ago or something like that. And I didn't know. I mean, I've met, you know, a few like vegetarians and vegan people, few of them at that time, but they weren't serious about things like in a very committed, deep way to like shift their lifestyle in ways that like really showed that it was, you know, something that was feasible. Or like, you know, maybe one person I can think of in the past that I knew of that wasn't that way, but she was very wealthy and had all the means to do all the things for herself and get herself all of the help that she needed. And so I just kind of chalked that up to privilege and like, oh, okay, well, I just can't do that. And so I'm not going to even look in that direction. And that's also a damn shame too, because that's actually not real. But, you know, 6 years ago, there weren't a lot of people like there are nowadays that are penetrating through social media. You know, we have a lot of different doctors, nutritionists, psychologists, and people like that creating content, which is amazing. But, you know, I didn't have anyone to represent that back then. So it was truly just out of pure desperation and my body showing like, hey, like, this isn't going to stop. So you have to do something. That I finally decided to take it seriously. And so that is, you know, a way to do it. And you can do it that way of waiting until it gets bad enough to pay attention. But, you know, waiting or like being able to get ahead of that is probably more ideal, especially because, you know, some people aren't as lucky. I might have been a little more on the lucky end of the spectrum in terms of like the health issues that were present. Wasn't like me getting a doctor saying, oh, by the way, you have cancer, something like that. It was just, you know, something else. But you don't want to wait until it's like the worst possible answer, right? And so being able to really understand, and when I look back in hindsight, I can see that if I had been able to cultivate an environment to care for myself more emotionally and not feel this need and this pressure to, you know, just work, and actually prioritize time to listen to my body and to listen to where my mind was, you know, like it's so hard, you know, I totally understand, but it's so difficult when you've only lived your life in one way, right? Just stress ridden, hustling all the time, never stopping to smell the roses and slowing down. It doesn't seem like there's anything else, but you don't know what you don't know until you know sometimes. So I just happened to see at that moment, okay, well, what can I do? How can I pay attention to this? And then learning that your mind and what you feel also affects your body. It's a lot. It's a lot of information. It's a lot to look at. And it really requires you, again, to really care about yourself enough to put in that kind of effort. And that's also tricky because most people usually don't do that. You know, we're not the world at large, but definitely here in the United States, there's not a culture of that mentality of slowing down, checking in with yourself, and caring for yourself enough to pay attention to these things. And you know, there's a shift happening, and that is great. But, you know, I think just knowing that it is actually possible is important. And knowing that it's as simple as just being very honest with yourself of, do I have, you know, certain health issues and things like that? Like, and can I actually do something about it? What can I possibly do? And am I committed enough to myself to be able to do the research I need to do to find answers for myself? Because, you know, going to a formal doctor is great to be able to help get certain things assessed. But if finances are an issue, you know, there's ways for you to be able to do some things at home until you're able to get to a place to find a doctor to help you. And so again, that's really the other pillar of my channel that I want to get into, is how we can comfortably feel like we can create a different relationship with ourselves, to take care of ourselves and to be able to do certain things at home for ourselves without having to spend a ton of money. Sometimes it can just be as simple as just starting with caring about it at all. And yeah, that might seem kind of like weird. Your family and your friends might not be into that kind of stuff, but you just have to really reason with yourself and think to yourself, well, do I really care so much about what other people think about what I'm doing? Or does it matter more about the life I'm actually going to live inside of my body? Do I want to just live a life of like low-key suffering? Or do I actually want to take myself seriously? Because no one else is going to fight for you the way that you're going to fight for yourself. And no one else is going to know what you need the way that you'll know that for yourself. And you just have to be willing to do that and to take it seriously. And it's hard, and it's a big change, and it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of effort. And that's tricky, but there are, you know, ways to get it done. And if you don't have the support for yourself, like I said in the last video, you can be your own cheerleader in the beginning. So I think I'm going to end this for now, and I'll dig into, you know, listening to your body a little bit more. I hope I didn't really like just repeat myself. I hope I was able to like give a little more clarity on listening to your body in this video. And yeah, I hope everyone is well. Be safe out there and take care.